We need probably
Yeah, I don't even know if that's going to help at this point. I hate to be pessimistic.
On the immigration side, anyway.
Birth rate, et cetera, you know. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the bulletin this Shabbos. I put in the bulletin a discussion of the husband who has threatened his wife that if because she's not lighting candles on time, that he's going to light the candles in her stead.
So are you getting Shabbos still this week?
I was going to say, should we hide the bulletin from our wives?
You know, interestingly enough,
invite you to our place.
Interestingly enough, I actually did do some cooking for the first time last night.
Oh.
My wife asked me if I was interested, and I said, definitely, honey.
And she's seen the bulletin.
You know, and I have to learn how to keep my mouth shut because it happened because I showed her this, you know, you ever see these cooking little clips on social media where someone's making something and it looks really good. And I said, oh, that looks really good. She said, okay, you'll make that for sure. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Achrayas. Okay. Achrayas horim al nizke yaldehem. Okay, this is a big issue. Parental responsibility when children do damage. What's secular law, Marv?
There's an act in Ontario called the Parental Responsibility Act, which makes parents liable for philaria kids. And yeah, there's a statute. At common law, you wouldn't be.
Common law, meaning what?
Judge-made law, you know, without legislative, you know, acts or provisions, you know, from the parliament or legislature or whatever. So they stepped in as a political matter and said there are situations when you let your kid go amok and go and break things, you're going to be responsible because the kid doesn't have money or isn't, you know.
What age is that then?
What age, I can't remember. I'll put
Well, I guess presumably until he's 18 years old, right?
Yeah, so yeah, until they're not an infant anymore or a child, which is the age of majority is 18.
Yeah.
So without him before that act, there would be no responsibility.
No. It wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Unless there's, you know, your own negligence or something like that, but the common law didn't recognize that. So if you're a little kid, you know, your 12-year-old or something comes to your house and busts your stuff deliberately, the parent would not have to pay for that generally.
Right, and that's actually Talmudic law as well. We'll see. Yeled katan, she barely et hachalon shel hamechonit sheli. A minor child broke my car window. Ha'im tzrichim hahorim shelo l'shalim li'atan nezek. Do his parents have to pay me for the damages? So let's just look at the basic information. HaMishnah omeret b'masechet bava kama cheresh shoyte v'katan pigiyasan ra'a. That unfortunately there are certain people within society that encounters with them always places you at a disadvantage, is essentially what the Mishnah is saying. Cheresh shoyte v'katan, a deaf mute, and mentally disabled person, and a minor. Okay, now deaf mutes we don't normally associate with mental incapacity, but before sign language was discovered or invented, or however you want to say it, deaf mutes were considered to be completely cut off from social interaction, and they were considered to be mentally incapacitated. So, and then the shoita, you know, you see, if you let people who are, you know, the town idiot or whatever they used to call them, basically were people who were mentally disabled, they can run amok and cause untold damage, and children. So why is their encounter at a disadvantage? Because achayvil bahem chayav, vehem shechavlu b'acherim piturim. Because if you damage them or injure them, you're liable. But if they injure you or property, they're going to be pater. The afal pisha higdilu einam chayavim l'shalim. And when it comes to a child, even when he becomes of age, when he becomes bar mitzvah, if he damaged that at the age of 11, he's not going to be liable when he comes of age. Kevin shebisha shehiziku lohayu b'nei das. Because when the damage was caused, they were not considered of sound mind. And therefore, they cannot be held liable. Masha'en came be'isha nesua shehizika, and this is contrasted with a married woman, meaning aval pisha petur milashalem, even though, let's say, if a woman who's married causes damage, she is going to be exempt from payment because she is considered to be someone who has no assets. The husband is exempt, and she's exempt because she's considered penniless, unless you can identify something in her estate that allows for her independent wealth. So, im niskarsha ha'isha onis almana chayeves l'shalem. But if she gets divorced or her husband predeceases her, then she becomes liable to pay. Why? Kevin shebisha shehizika k'shahisa nesuya hayabadas. The reason is, by contrast, when she did the damage, she was of sound mind. Rak shelo hayalam malashalem, but she didn't have any assets to her name, and that's the reason why she's putter. Masha'en came, but so when she gets divorced, then she's considered to be on her own recognizance, and she's independent financially. Then she has to pay from whatever she has from her ksuva or whatever other monies.
Retroactively?
So it's a retroactive liability. In other words, it's not really a retroactive liability. I wouldn't say it's retroactive. It's basically a debt that she cannot pay over the course of her marriage. But once she gets divorced, that debt becomes due because now she has the assets with which to pay.
Without any time, like. Yeah, without any time.
Correct. There's no statute of limitations on damages. Yeah. Masha'enkein bekatan shehizik shehaptur umachma shelo hayabadas. But if a minor causes damage, even when he becomes of age and becomes of sound mind, he's exempt. By the way, I hope maybe we'll see this in the postskim, but there were great rabbis. I'm trying to remember which one it was, whether it was the Stipler or somebody else. They said about him that he remembered that when he was a minor, he had caused someone damage, and he insisted on paying for it, even though he was technically exempt. Okay, so that's what
He was
it.
probably of sound mind at 3.
Well,
according to the biographies in the West.
yeah, well, don't believe everything you read. Okay, anyway, v'nipsa kain lahalacha b'Rambam. This is paskind as halacha in the Rambam because of Harosh shegzelos v'chavolos shasa hakatan afilu im hu moda b'kach poter. That if a minor steals and damages, even if he confesses to it, he's still going to be poter. Va'afilu l'chashiyagdil, even when he becomes of age. Mishum delav bar onshin hu klal al masha asa bekatnuso, because he's not considered to be punishable at all for anything that he did when he was a minor. V'chein pasak moran b'shulchan aruch, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Ulam, however, or zarua hevi raya mehagamara katan shehizik chayiv l'shalim kishiyagdil lotzeis yidei shamayim. The Or Zarua, however, brings, and this is probably what I'm remembering, brings proof from the Gemara that if a minor damages, then when he becomes of age, even though you cannot sue him in a Beis Din, but he should be Yotze Yedei Shamayim in order to fulfill his heavenly requirement, he does have to pay for whatever damage he caused when he was a minor. Ki ha-Gemara b'Bava Kama misaperes sherafram kafa es Rav Ashi shesarf shtarchov bi'alduso, that the Gemara gives us the story. Rafram was an Amora, and he compelled Rav Ashi, who, when he was a minor, burned someone's promissory note. I guess maybe they didn't learn back then you shouldn't play with matches or whatever. And he ended up burning someone's promissory note. And now that Rav Ashi was of age, Rafram said to him, you have to pay for the value of that promissory note. Because what you did was causative, okay? And I guess the Or Zarua says you see that Rav Ashi had some liability, even though he was a minor when he caused the damage. Aval habach hiksha al zeh. The Bach, however, challenges that. He says, "De'im kain lama hayitzarach Rafram lachapos es Rav Ashi sheyashalim." Why then did Rafram have to compel or coerce Rav Ashi to pay? V'chiyale al hadas shechasid v'tzadik kamo Rav Ashi lo yirtza l'shalim mamon shechayiv min adin l'shalim. Why would Rav Ashi, if the halacha required him to pay, why would he need the coercion of a colleague to compel him to pay? That doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't you think that a tzaddik like Rav Ashi would want to do the right thing on his own? Elavadai tzarech lomar shehakol haya bi'alduso shel Rav Ashi b'Rafram ratza lahakoso shelo yazik yoser. So you have to say that I think Rafram was Rav Ashi's father. Am I getting that right? I'm not sure. Let me just double check. So you have to say that Rafram, this whole story where Rav Ashi was coerced to pay for the damage he caused was not after he became of age. But Rafram, for whatever reason, wanted to discipline Rav Ashi when he was a child, when he was still little Ashi. Yeah. Let's see. Biography. Simoy was Rav Ashi, was Rav Ashi's father. So who was Rafram? Maybe it was his teacher. Rafram. Rafram, he was a disciple. Oh, no, this is Rafram the second. Now we have to see who Rafram the first was. Wikipedia has one on Rafram second. Now who's Rafram the first? So Rafram was let's see. Getting it for you. Huh, it's not here. Let's see. Okay. Okay, that was not helpful. Okay, in any event, it's Rafram Bar Papa, who must have been older than Rav Ashi. This is the first Rafram. So the government was Sikul Ashtar Keshehigel Kevin Shechayv Medina de Garmi. So the Bach says, Elavadai Tzarech Lomer Shakol Haya Bialduso Sharav Ashi V'Rafram Ratzalah Hakoso Shelo Yazik Yoser. That Rafram just wanted to discipline Rav Ashi because he was this avil dechaya of a kid, right? He was what do you call him, a chalaria? Okay, I wouldn't call little Ashi a chalaria. Yeah, no, we wouldn't call that but he was an energetic child, which, by the way, shows you that the most energetic wild kids can become the people who become the Gedolei Hador. And not the one who knows what everything is at the age of 3. L'chemoshe Kosav HaRambam, like the Rambam had said, Shiroi lebeis din lahakos haktanim al hagneva. The Rambam writes that the Beis Din has the jurisdiction to give corporal punishment to children who steal, kifi koach hakatan kedei shelo yiragilam ba, so that they should not become used to this behavior. Because if you allow a child to run free and do whatever he wants, it's not that like once he becomes bar mitzvah, he's going to turn off the switch. It's just, it's a terrible disaster. Like, I wish parents would know what to do with their kids. And Rav Ashi said, I'm not gonna accept the whipping. I'll just pay for the damage I caused. Avol meikar hadin lahaya chayv l'shalim begadluso chamosha pasek marin b'shulchan aruch. But he says the Bach disagrees with the Or Zarua, and he says that no, there is no even heavenly liability to pay, as the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Now, let's see. So the Rav Ovadia, he quotes the Makar Baruch quotes Rav Ovadia Yosef as saying, Shatam al Bach. He asked the question on the Bach. He says, Daha ein based in Rishus lahakos katan al menas litol maman, that a Din doesn't have the right to give corporal punishment in order to extract payment. Daha harambam kosav rak lahakos hakatan v'sulo, v'havadulo lahosif Allah. So the Bach is inferring from that if they want, they can give a katan the option to pay in lieu of lashes. He says that's not something that the Rambam says. But that's, and anyway, we'll put that aside now. Let's go on. He says, Aval hataz kasav sharavashi hayapater min adin, ela sharaf from kafo so bidvarim shiyasa lifnim mishuras hadin. The Taz writes that Rav Ashi really was exempt, and this whole event took place after Rav Ashi became a legal adult. But Rafram coerced him to do above and beyond the letter of the law. It doesn't mean that Rafram physically coerced him. It means that he put pressure on him and said, I know that you're putter, but I want you to do the right thing. When you were 10 years old, you broke so-and-so's window and you caused damage. I want you to pay for it because you're going to become a great Rosh Hashiva, you're going to become the great Rav Ashi one day. I don't want there to be any specter of the past looming over you. Amnam b'shut maram padva'a kasav demasha kasav Rashi bi. I'll do so. Ena kavana shayakatan alakodim shenasan ichbad b'chashav. There's another way of understanding that story in the Gemara from the Maram Padva, who says that when he was a child, when Rashi says that he was a child when he caused the damage, does not mean that he was a legal child. It was already after his bar mitzvah, but he was still young Ashi. But he was maybe 16, 17 years old. And that's why he had to pay. And we have that term, when you're a yeled, doesn't necessarily mean when you're a halachic minor. A yeled could be a teenage kid before he becomes a prominent leader within the Jewish people. That's why Yosef is called a Yeled, even though we know that he was 17 years old when he was sold into slavery. This Torah still calls him a Yeled. The Rav Ashi asazos b'shogeg, and Rav Ashi committed the damage unintentionally. It was an accident. Umashakafa also rafram l'shalim hanu mishum sha'adam muad la'olam. Rav Ashi hayasover kamo rabba shepoter v'lachen hayatzarach lechafoso. And it was a legitimate machlokas between Rafram and Rav Ashi as to what the halacha is. Is a human being considered a muad, or is he a tam? Rav Ashi felt that it was a one-time accidental offense. I shouldn't have to pay. And Rafram demonstrated to him, no, you're wrong. We have a principle that adam muad la'olam, that if a human being even accidentally causes damage, they always have to pay. And this opinion also is emphatic that a katan who causes damage is exempt from paying even after he becomes of age. Amnam kasa b'sefer chasidim, but in Sefer Chasidim is brought, Ish echad bo lifnei hachacham va'omer, zocher ani shehayisi gainev mibnei adam keshehayiti katan, v'gam hayiti chote b'sha'ar averot. There was a man who came before Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, or came before a wise man, and said to him that I recall before my bar mitzvah, I used to do terrible things. I used to steal. I used to do other kinds of sins. You remember little kids, little kids who steal the candy from the Rabbi Stender, So I see it all the time. And what kind of kid would steal candy from the rabbi? It happens every Shabbos. There's like a Yetzer Hara, because I tell the kids one candy only. And you see kids, they just can't, there's certain kids who have such a strong Yetzer Hara, they have this need to take a second one. And some of them will do so like with stealth, thinking that I don't see. Like,
It's for little brother.
yeah. No, but some say some say that it's for my brother, and I say no. Your brother has to come himself. But there are other times when they try to they show they're only taking one, and then they've palmed the other one. Yeah, that's really
They're gonna be the dealer.
yeah. It's really interesting. It's like and then you say, all right, what is this kid gonna come? Yeah. Okay. So a person came before the rabbi. He said, when I was a minor, I committed a number of different averos. So number one, do I have to do tshuva for sins that I committed as a child? And do I have to pay back for what I stole? So the rabbi said to him, and this is quoted by the Sefer Chasidim, anything that you stole when you were a minor, you have to pay back. And you have to do tshuva even for things that you did as a child. And I remember quoting this Sefer Chasidim not too long ago, but I have to remember the context. But you do have to do tshuva according to the Svarim, even for things that you did as a child. Behavi lo raya miyoshiyahu shagmar omeres shekol din shadan mi ben shmona ad shmonasrei hechazir osam. Yoshiyahu HaMelech, the Gemara says, became king when he was a minor, when he was 8 years old. And he used to preside over court cases. But any rulings that he made from the age of 8 to 18, when he looked back upon his cases, he realized that he didn't have the proper acumen, he didn't have the proper intellectual experience to be able to properly rule on those cases. So he, from his own pocket, he made restitution to any person that he found to be liable to pay on those cases for a period of 10 years. And you see from there that a person has to make restitution for things that he did as a minor. Amnam b'shut shvus yankiv chasav de'afal pisha b'sefer chasidim mashma shechayv l'shalim hakol k'sheyagdil. He says, but the Shvus Yaakov writes that notwithstanding, that what's written in Sefer Chasidim, lo haisa kavanasu meikar hadin rak midas chasidus o ba'ofen shech achayfet shegozal nimsa dain birshusa. That's not meikar hadin. A letter of the law does not require that, but many times the Sefer Chasidim goes above and beyond the letter of the law. Another possibility is if the item that you stole as a minor is still in your possession. A kid steals someone's Mickey Mantle baseball card, and he still knows where it is, then you have to give it back even when you become an adult. Okay. Now, we'll skip the long footnote for now. Because of Moreno Harav Chaim Vital Bashar Hagilgulim. Now, Rav Chaim Vital was a student of the Arizal, and he wrote a sefer called Sha'ar Hagilgulim, The Gate of Reincarnations, which is a whole sefer on the principle of reincarnation. So it's a mystical sefer, okay? Shabiyoso katan kilol pamechas es imo. He writes in the Hakdama to that sefer that when he was a child, he once cursed his mother. Wow. Little Reb Chaim, little Chaimel. When he was a little child, he cursed his mother. B'tziva oso Rabbeinu Harizal lihitanot shlosha yomim ritzufim laila b'yom. And when he told this to his Rebbe, the Arizal told him he had to fast for 3 days straight, night and day, which is very difficult, brings you near death. Umuchach midvarav shalpi hasod, katan sha'asa averet tzarach lihitanot aleha k'sheyigdal. That based on Kabbalah, when a person becomes of age, he has to repent for everything that he did when he was a child. Why are you looking so concerned?
The list is growing, have a lot of problems.
Yeah. All right. Ula halacha. So halachically, how do we paskin? Katan shehizik mamon chavero o shegazlo, that if a minor causes damage to his friend or steals from him, min hadin pater l'shalem afilu la'achar sheyigdal. When he, halachically, the letter of the law is that he's pater, even after he becomes of age. Ve'eno chayiv l'shalem afilu lotzeis yedei shamayim, and he's not liable to pay even to fulfill his heavenly duty. Aval mimidas chasidus tov sheyishalem. But a pious person will always go ahead and pay. The yisvada el cheto kimavur ba'orach b'shailos utshuvas yabia omer. And Rav Ovadia Yosef has a whole discussion about the vidoy that you should say, the confessional you have to say to Hashem in your prayers to do tshuva for what you did as a minor. Umikol makom imroim shehakatan mazik bekavana. However, if we see that a child is a wild kid and he is deliberately, maliciously causing damage to other people's property, like, let's say he likes to play with matches, he likes to burn things, or, so Kevin Shiyodea Shekatan Pater Milashalem, he says, and he does so because he knows he's a smart kid, and he knows that I won't be held liable, because the halacha is that if a minor causes damage, he's pater. Yesh lahorav l'shalim es hanizakim kidei lahartia oto shelo yazik od. The parents, as one of the tools in their arsenal to get their child in line, should tell the kid, we are paying for every damage that you cause, because that hopefully will disincentivize the kid from doing more and more damage. Hopefully, if it doesn't, then you're really haktatzaras, because that's an indication that the kid is really a rotten apple.
In the schools, if your kid damages, like an eight's fine, they charge the parents.
Oh, is that right?
And also in the high schools too, going darkly too.
Well, I think
Kids kick a hole in the wall because they're fighting around.
Well, darche makes sense. The kids are over bar mitzvah.
But if they climb, they do the same thing.
Same with like hotels and places like that, like if you damage the property, you're liable for it, whether it's your child or you or whatever. So I mean.
Right. So
It's there.
what we're learning is that halachically, that is not the requirement. In other words, if a parent says, I pay you so much tuition, so my kid kicked a hole in the wall, right? So, but the halach in Shulchan Aruch is that I'm not liable.
Parents would have known.
You can also do it by way of contract also. For example, in that case, schools or whatever, as part of the membership of a club, you can impose on the member, if things are damaged by your child, you'll agree to indemnify us for the cost.
Like in the
that
shul here.
child
I think
is.
Mhm.
That's a different issue. That's not the common law, that's contract law.
But that's.
It's like sort of terms of your entry and
Or
use
yeah,
your membership.
Visitation rights, or your invitee, a licensee, or whatever it is, right?
The kid on Shabbos in the shul and kicks a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
We ask the parents to pay.
We should ask them if a parent would come back to us and say,
Allah clean heart.
halachically, I'm not liable. We could say, yes, that's true. Your child is barred from our building for life. If there's ever another bar mitzvah, or any other simcha that your child wishes to attend at the bayit, until you pay this, he will not be permitted. We can't coerce you to pay it al pi halacha. You're right. That's the halacha. But you should know that both you and your child are permanently barred from ever coming into our building.
So, Rabbi, one of the things I didn't mention here was what's the age of responsibility?
Usually it's 13. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, you've got, as a parent, you're only responsible for your child until they're 6. Right?
As far as supporting
As
them.
far as supporting
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
Then 13, they become responsible for their own mitzvahs.
yeah.
But then there's another age, 18 or 21, where basically it's like they've gone through their apprenticeship and now everything is their responsibility.
It's 20. From Shemayim, they're responsible for everything at 20.
So at what point does this, do you say that this stops or starts?
The legal issue, the legal aspects of responsibility start at 13. 13, yeah. Okay, we'll hold it here for today. Yeah, all right, have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It was like a sloppy Joe with cabbage and beans. We'll be sitting by the campfire tonight.
What's that? Season? That's what I'm saying.
Blazing saddles.
Blazing
Okay. Take care, everybody.